Courtney, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So shout out once again to my man Gumaro Vasquez, who's always sending me translations and reports on what's going on when it comes to the Spanish networks. Gumaro tells me all the time, a lot of people, they go onto these Spanish boxing shows and they say the most ridiculous things and no one ever reports it. And that's the reason why they say the most ridiculous things in Spanish, because they don't think the rest of the world, at least the boxing world, is going to report it. Just like when it comes to Bernardo Usana, someone who works for ESPN, he works for regular ESPN as an analyst, and he also works on ESPN Deportes. Well, he went on a Spanish network, I made a video on it, and he called Crawford and Errol Spence cowards. He used the word cobardes, saying that they would be cowards if they don't fight against each other. And the only reason he called them cowards in the first place is because he was angry his colleague who was standing next to him, at least both of them, they both told Bernardo to his face that Crawford is number one, the best fighter in the world, and Errol Spence is number two. That enraged Bernardo so much, he went on a rant saying that Terence Crawford and Errol Spence are cowards if they don't fight against each other, despite the fact that he knew that that fight was already in serious negotiations right now. And just keep in mind, guys, by way of contrast, Canelo Alvarez never went into any type of negotiations when it came to Demetrius Andrade, David Benavidez, or Jermall Charlo. In fact, instead of negotiating with Jermall Charlo, Canelo just surrendered his belt. He just completely vacated the belt. But we know what Crawford did when Sean Porter was his mandatory, right? Matter of fact, I went real deep in that video. So if you guys missed it, make sure you check it out. But let's go ahead and get into the current news. Another interview on one of these Spanish boxing shows, the WBC president, Mauricio Solomon. Man, oh man. Mauricio said right before the Benavidez-David Lemieux fight, and I'm going to quote, he said, if Benavidez wins, Canelo is not obligated to fight with him, even if he is Canelo's number one mandatory. Saul is franchise champion and only he knows who he'll fight. End quote. These are once again the messages that my man Gumaro Vasquez sends me on Facebook, keeping me up to date on the Spanish boxing interviews. So you heard Mexico's own WBC champion, Mauricio Solomon. He said it doesn't matter if David Benavidez is the mandatory. In other words, he said Canelo Alvarez can do what he wants because he's the franchise champion.
The franchise is not a belt, it's not a championship, it's a designation given to elite, unique fighters who carry the industry of the sport of boxing.
If anybody has been calling the WBC franchise belt a belt, you stand corrected, because the WBC president just told you in his own words what the franchise status is. It's a designation. It's not a belt. It is not a championship belt. This is what he said. Now, of course, once the kitchen got too hot and the WBC president was forced to keep contradicting himself over this whole franchise story, then he changed the narrative and he said, I changed my mind, now it is considered a belt. And the only reason the WBC president had changed his stance is because of the confusion that Lomachenko caused when he decided to vacate his belt rather than fight his mandatory Devin Haney, the same thing that Canelo Alvarez did when it came to avoiding his mandatory Jermall Charlo. But when Lomachenko did it, he and old media, they kept claiming that he was the real WBC champion because he got the franchise status. And then he lost to Teofimo Lopez, and then Teo, he took the whole game to another level because he started calling himself undisputed, saying that I got the franchise belt, I am undisputed. This is when the WBC president intervened And he said that the WBC franchise status, it is a real belt. In fact, it is superior to all the other WBC belts. Canelo Alvarez has forced Mauricio to contradict himself so many times. When Canelo first got the franchise status, Jermall Charlo, he immediately came out and said, okay, well, I want to fight Canelo for the franchise. And you know what the WBC president said? He said the belt is non-transferable. But then, of course, once Teofimo Lopez beat Lomachenko, the franchise status was transferred over to Lopez. And then once Kambosos beat Lopez, the franchise status was transferred over to him. We know what time it is. Now, going back to what Mauricio said about this David Benavidez situation, him being Canelo Alvarez's mandatory. Mauricio also said that Canelo Alvarez is still pound for pound the best fighter in the world. So let me repeat. Mauricio is saying Canelo is the best fighter in the world. He just came off of a loss where he was completely dominated. On top of that, Mauricio's also saying he doesn't even have to fight his number one contender at 168 to defend his crown, to defend his belt. I'm gonna tell you something, guys. Saying that Canelo Alvarez is pound for pound the best fighter in the world, that's like saying Donald Trump is still the president. It's like saying Biden is not really the president. Donald Trump actually is still the president. The WBC and old media, they are the Fox News of boxing. They are the Republicans of the sport. While in politics, one party tries to do their best to suppress the vote, they try to keep certain people from voting, people of color in particular. In boxing, old media tries to protect Canelo Alvarez from fighting certain people of color. They would suppress the idea of Canelo Alvarez fighting Jermall Charlo, fighting Demetrius Andrade, especially when he was at 154 and 160. Just like now, they're suppressing the idea of him fighting against David Benavidez. But they encourage Canelo to take on easier competition like Plant, Smith, Saunders, or Yildirim. In politics, it was only after we had the first black president, Barack Obama. This is when Republicans, they went out of their way to pass a lot of bills to make it harder for people of color to vote. In boxing, since Floyd Mayweather became pound for pound the best fighter in the world, old media has done everything they can do, or I should say tried everything they can do, to prevent another Floyd Mayweather from emerging. This is the reason why they get so quiet when Shakur Stevenson dominates Oscar Valdez. This is the reason why a lot of boxing websites, old media boxing websites today, they're trying to do everything they can do to prevent putting Terrence Crawford at number one, because they feel that this whole Floyd Mayweather stuff is just going to start over. But no matter what you do, no matter what you write, no matter who you put on that list, you're never going to stop great fighters, especially from America, from rising to the top. Because black fighters from America have been dominating the sport of boxing since the inception, and they always will. And that's not up for debate. I'm not giving you my opinion. That is a statistical fact. Sure, there will always be great champions of different colors and nationalities in the sport, but when we are talking about in general, Team USA will always be dominant, the most dominant fighters in the sport of boxing. Now, when it comes to David Benavidez being Canelo Alvarez's mandatory, David Benavidez, he needs to stop being so silent. He needs to stop going along with what the WBC is doing. He needs to start exposing the corruption and the contradictions that the WBC is making. If the sport of boxing wasn't so corrupt, there would be absolutely no way Mauricio Suleiman of the WBC can get away with all of the things that he's doing in the sport. I mean, what is the point of being a champion? If you don't have to defend your crown, you don't have to defend the throne. You don't have to defend your belt. If that's the case, then you're nothing but a contender. You're not a champion, because that's what contenders can do. If a contender wants to, he can just go to Mexico and fight against guys with 15 losses and stay undefeated if he wants. He's not forced to fight some young, hungry, undefeated lion. He can fight whoever he wants. You see, while these people are trying their best to protect Canelo Alvarez, because Canelo is a person that is full of pride, he understands that although these people have my best interests, they feel that I am so flawed, I am so weak, I need them to hold my hand and protect me from not just one fighter, but every fighter. From 168 to 175, hell, from 154 to 175, I need to be protected. And that's a hard pill for someone like Canelo Alvarez to swallow when he's full of pride. I mean, that's like you been out with your girl and some guy wants to kick your ass. He's calling you out of your name, disrespecting you. And your wife is like, no, he don't need to fight you. Baby, come on, let's go home. And the reason why she's saying that, because she like, man, he will beat your ass, honey. Let's just go ahead and go home. How do you think that's gonna make that man feel? When even his girl don't have confidence in him. This is how Canelo Alvarez is feeling deep down right now. Eddie Hearn keeps telling him, don't take the Bivol fight. Why? Because he's better than you. Let's take an easier fight. Let's keep you winning, right? Now you got the president, the WBC president. Canelo doesn't have to fight David Benavidez at 168. He can fight whoever he wants. Translation, Canelo, did you just see what David did to David Lemieux? Stay away from him. You're not on that level, Canelo. Let's just keep you winning. You can fight whoever you want. Let's get you some more guaranteed wins. You want to do a rematch with Caleb Plant or Smith? It's up to you, Canelo. You can fight whoever you want. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
My name is Chris, and I'm all the way here from Anchorage, Alaska at Scalp Carolinas, and I'm here for my second treatment of SMP. Well, I was sitting at home one day and going over my Facebook page, and they have different, like advertisements popping up, and I saw one for SMP, and I saw some pictures of some guys, before and after, and I was looking at that, and it caught my attention, so I Googled it, SMP. Nothing showed up in my area, so I did a little more research, and all of a sudden, Scalp Carolinas popped up in the web browser. So I started watching his videos and seeing all the reaction from all the other people. We talked on the phone, we made appointments and everything. I sent him pictures, and he looked at them, and I was like, can you fix this? And he pretty much said, no problem. My first session, he made me feel extremely comfortable. It was almost like I was talking to family. He started, and during the whole treatment, we talked and about our families and our life, and and things that he does and things that I do. And before I know it, the first session was over. When you see someone doing something that they love, as much as I see Enoch Glover love what he does, it shows in his work. I wouldn't point anyone in any other direction but here to North Carolina, Scalp Carolinas, to get this done.
All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, then this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called LO Key Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to lodkey.com, like them on Facebook, and follow them on Instagram.
I just finished shooting a 67 on the golf course and looking good too, wearing a Travis Matthew, the perfect polo. Comment below. I'll give you 3 free shirts September 2nd.